We are people of observation. We observe the passage of the sun across the sky to determine our prayer times. We measure them. We measure shadow lengths. So we take observations of the physical world to understand them. And of course, many of the things that we take in the traditional teachings that we have in Fiqh, etc., they're really premised on an Aristotelian and medieval mindset. And they're not really moved up into the modern world. For example, I'll give you an example. Now this is actually my introduction to my topic on Tasawwuf, by the way. The purpose of this, for example, who here has read basic Aqidah here? Maybe a basic Aqidah text. Okay, one guy. Oh, he deserves a gold coin. Because you all should have by now. When you study Aqidah, one of the things you'll study is how to describe the physical universe. One way you describe it is by breaking it down. And so medieval Muslim theologians, building upon the thought of Aristotle, and you will find that they understood the concept of the atom, the jawhar. The Arabic word is jawhar. And in jawhar, they didn't know that these things existed. But Muslim theologians and philosophers speculated, just as the Greeks did, that, and the reason they did this because they had to affirm Allah being qadim, Allah being eternal, was that matter, stuff that things are made of, must have a limit to it. And so they speculated and thought that if you could, and you study this in science, if you take a block of wood and cut it, and you get a smaller block of wood, and you keep cutting, the idea was you could cut that wood down till you came to an indivisible particle. The Greeks called it the atom. It could not be broken down anymore. And that all matter was composed of this. Therefore, matter had a limit to it. It wasn't eternal, infinitely divisible. And so, because there were even some Muslims who believed that matter was eternal, and therefore it caused a rivalry with God. And therefore, Muslim theology always discusses matter. Because it says, if you can, how do you perceive matter? Like this recording device here, it takes up space. It has a location. Matter's that way. Then it says God isn't like His creation. Since God's not like that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then God can't have a place. He can't be moved. He can't move like this recorder moves. It was a really simple set of arguments based upon a concept of matter. But then Einstein came along, and up until Einstein wrote a paper on Brownian motion, where he tried to understand the idea that why did pollen grains vibrate in water? What was causing pollen grains under a microscope to vibrate in water? And Einstein speculated they must be because something's hitting them. So Einstein was the first person in history to prove there was an atom. And one of the first papers he wrote on Brownian motion, before he wrote his works on relativity. And when he did that, the world changed. The world changed. No longer was the atom theoretical, the jawhar theoretical, it was verifiable. And today we know it exists. And you all study it. You used to go to middle school and high school, and out to college. But all the texts that you read now, whether it's a jawhar or any Maturidi text, all are premised upon the concept of an atom, which is the wrong concept. That concept of the atom doesn't exist anymore. It never existed. And that means we're going to have to adjust ourselves to a new set of understandings of matter, and energy in this case, equals mc squared, when we come to a discussion on what it is and what God is not in relationship to it. And that will require Muslims who have the intellectual capacity, the scientific skill, and the spiritual acumen to do that. And then fortunately, in our time, those are probably about 5 people. So that is one reason I just started talking about tasawwuf is important. And I can give you an argument why that is, but then we'll be here a little bit long. I've got plenty of time. I have flights tomorrow at 10 o'clock, so I'm looking at the airport time. I'm okay. It's Sunday night, none of you guys go to church services anyway, so you're alright. Shah Naqshband Qudsiruhu, the eponym, the man whose name is given, eponym, the man whose name is given to the Naqshband tradition. He said the purpose of tasawwuf is to take the things that you know discursively, that you've studied and learned, and that you now know them experientially. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the concept of Tawheed, for example, of God, divine oneness, you experience Tawheed, not because you read it in a theological text. You read Nasafi or something like that, a big text on the concept of Tawheed. Now you experience Tawheed. For example, an understanding of Allah's nature is He's mukhalaf wa hawadith. He's dissimilar to hawadith, things that are created. How do you experience a God who is not like His creation? What is that experience? What is that experience? So Imam Rabbani, Ahmad al-Hindi, in his letters, in one of his early letters in volume 1, he talks about, and if you don't know, who doesn't know who Imam Rabbani is? Ahmad al-Hindi. Who doesn't know? You all know about him? Yeah, Ahmad al-Hindi was a great Mujaddid of India, died in 1624, and you've all been influenced by him in his works, and his thought. You all have been, some of you, believe me, you have been. The creation of the state of Pakistan itself was probably one of the fruits of his thought. Anyway, and I love him a lot, you know, so I was like, I should have, we started a website called www.ahmadsuhindi.com, you know, I really love him a lot, you know, he's a great man. Anyway, so I'm not going to advertise him too much. You have to go read, be curious. He said, if I was to tell, and this is my translation of it, if I was to tell the seeker at the beginning of his spiritual path what was at the end of it, he would despair. Where did he know that? He meant that if they knew the nature of God, what it truly was, they would despair. Because at the end of the spiritual path is exactly what Abu Bakr Sadiq said, idrak idrakun. The inability to comprehend God is true comprehension of God. The inability to comprehend God is true comprehension. That's Tawheed. Experientially. Indescribable. You have references of what Allah is and what He's not. You can speak of His sifat. We pray is more than just the physical form. These are the things you must think about as a Muslim today if you want to understand the place of tasawwuf in the whole scheme of the deen. Scheme of the deen, I like that. When Jibril came to the Prophet, the very first hadith in Sahih Muslim, the Gabriel hadith, and he asked Rasulullah, Akhbani al-Islam, Akhbani al-Iman, Akhbani al-Ihsan, inform me of Islam, inform me of Iman, inform me of Ihsan. Jibril al-Islam was asking through a hierarchical approach towards things, both of the individual, the context of the individual, and the state of the individual. The individual is his basic formal Islam, the arkan of Islam, you think of the fundamentals, shahada, the prayers, etc. And that's the individualness of it. It's you and your body coming to God. Then there was the concept of Iman, where you were believing in God and angels and books and prophets, and you were then taking that body, the Muslim body, and his prayer and his fast and his hajj and his zakat, etc., and his shahada, and the individual Muslim in his bodily form, in his bodily activities of rituals of the body, and rituals of wealth. Zakat, wealth, extending from your wealth. Hajj, wealth and body. Zakat, the body. Shahada, of the tongue, is a verbal testimony, for example. Yet it's significant in its foundational need, establishment for salvation. That's the individual. And the individuals come collectively in ritual prayer. They come collectively in Hajj. They come collectively in the fast. They come collectively in Taraweeh, for example. So the individuals become a collective. But it's still a set of individuals. But those individuals that are shifted in Iman to higher realities, and those higher realities are what? You believe in God, but